Hi, welcome to another exciting episode of the Andre The Beast Crayton Show. Today, we're going to dabble into human performance. Not just human performance, but several things we're going to talk about today. Human performance, athletic performance, coming in and out of the professional sports industry, and more important, playing it back, playing your gift back to the community and starting a legacy. And a lot of times legacy doesn't have to be on the football field, on the basketball field, in corporate America. A legacy to me is, how do people remember you once you are no longer here? Will they speak your name? How do they talk about you? Today on the show, we have one of the, I'll call it what it is, one of the greatest athletes that played the game. And let me explain that part too, because I think a lot of people don't understand what this means when I say the greatest. The greatest mean for what you contribute at the time in the opportunity that you were given, that you gave your all to your career, your family, your life. His story starts from a small town, college, NFL, now entrepreneurship. His name is definitely one that's known from Greek mythology, which he'll tell us a little bit more about it. It has nothing to do with Greek mythology. I'd like to welcome to the show the one, the only, the god of war himself, which he's going to clarify that, Mr. Airese Currie. Welcome to the show, big guy.
I appreciate you having me, Dre. It's a pleasure to be on the show today, man.
Man, look, a brother with the name Airese, man, you're lucky, because I know you always been probably, when you found out that that was your name and it was related to Greek mythology, and anybody that knows Greek mythology, that's the god of war. What was that? What was that like for you? Tell me about this name first before we get into your journey.
So, like I was mentioning to you beforehand, my first cousin's mother named me. She was my uncle's boyfriend at the time. And for years, growing up, just understanding Greek mythology, traveling around different parts of the world, I thought that's what the name was derived from, Greek mythology, the god of war. So, that's because other people, peers, will bring that up as well, too. So that kind of stuck with me over the years. And I'm just recently come to know that it actually was a Muslim name. That's what she came up with, and that's what it derived from. So it took me 42 years to realize, no, it wasn't about the Greek mythology, but I'm still going to stick with that, though.
So tell me a little bit tell the viewers a little bit about who you are before we get really deep into your story.
Okay, small town kid from a country town in St. Paul's, North Carolina, probably total population about 3,300 people. My mother was a single parent, as myself, her and my sister growing up. She was a military in the Army, so we moved around a little bit. I was fortunate enough to travel a little bit. Been to Germany twice. First trip was kindergarten through second grade. That's where I picked up organized basketball. Basketball is my first true love. That's the first organized sport that I started playing basketball. But went to Germany as a young jit. I remember that plane ride. That was my first plane ride. People talk about their first plane rides all the time, but my first plane ride was 8 hours over the ocean to another country as a 5-year-old.
Wow.
And man, I cried like hell the whole time because I didn't understand that whole ear popping thing that was going on. My mom was trying to give me that spearmint gum and it was not working. So it was not working. But moving on, I got back from Germany, stayed with my grandma third grade year because my mom got stationed in Korea. And at that time, children weren't allowed to go to Korea with their parents. So my sister and I stayed in North Carolina, back in my hometown with my grandmother for that school year. And that year, my dad encouraged me to pick up baseball. So I added baseball to the deal. I didn't play any organized basketball. I put that down for a second, but I played baseball that year. So got into baseball. I really loved it. My mother got back from Korea after that year. She got stationed in Fort Belvoir, Northern VA, Alexandria area. So I moved up there, fourth through sixth grade, and that's where I began to play the big three. Picked basketball back up, continued to play baseball, and I added football. I didn't start playing tackle football until my fifth grade year in elementary school.
Right.
Was pretty successful at it. Did really good. Made the Hall of Fame, the Youth Football Hall of Fame while I was up there for Fairfax County. You know, I got the trophy around here somewhere.
They have a
But
Hall of Fame for
man, they had a Hall of Fame, Dre, back then. Back then, we're talking about, you know,
wow.
90s, early 90s, mid 90s. Yes, they had Fairfax County Football Hall of Fame. It was youth football was pretty serious. I played for a team called the Fort Belvoir Bulldogs, and we had a really good time. I played for the 80-pounder, 85-pounder. I think 95-pound was the 2 years I played. But moved from there, moved back to Germany my seventh through ninth grade year. They didn't have tackle football seventh and eighth grade year, so I didn't play football because I'm not playing flag football. So I just focused on basketball. But then I started running organized track because I was always fast. I just came by honestly. So I picked up track, was very successful in that. Going into ninth grade year, they had high school football there, so I picked football back up, attempted to, but I don't even really count that because I got hurt because they were playing me out of position. So I
Okay.
made to play like 2 games or so at the running back position because I was fast. So broke a lot of records while I was in Germany. I was all Europe in the 100, 200, 400, and the high jump, and I think long jump as well too. As a freshman in high school,
Wow.
yeah, all Europe. You think about that, Italy, England, Germany, all the teams, the Dodds locations where different military bases were located throughout Europe. I was spanking all of them as a ninth grader, so they couldn't stand me. So that was pretty cool. And people used to always see my plaques when I moved back stateside, hanging up in my room and stuff. And they didn't couldn't quite wrap their mind around what that looked like. And I would tell them
Right.
that's when I got back here stateside, which is where I reside now in Columbia. So mom got stationed at Fort Belvoir, not Fort Belvoir, Fort Jackson, because she now is on the trail. She's being a drill sergeant. So new chapter of my life, 10th through 12th grade is where I finished up high school here in Columbia, South Carolina. And so I didn't play football my sophomore year when I got back here. I only focused on basketball and track because I was done with football. I had hung it up due to the previous year. But due to all the attention that I was getting from track that sophomore year that I ran, I'm talking about from Power Five schools, and I hadn't even tested football. I told my mother, I was like, "Look, I think I'm gonna pick football back up," and
Right.
I did. So junior year, I stopped playing basketball because my coach he was playing me out of position, and his expectations for my ability to go to the collegiate level wasn't where my expectations were. I wanted to go to Chapel Hill to play basketball. I told you I'm originally from North Carolina.
Yeah.
I went to
Yeah.
Dean Smith's camps when I was young, you know, ninth grade, and even so, I wanted to be a Tar Heel. I was a Tar Heel when it came to collegiate basketball, and I was a Florida State Seminole when it came to collegiate football. So
Okay.
Tar Heels
I'm not
was my
gonna argue
dream.
with that. I'm all about the you, dog. Now,
so,
now my
so
baby brother, he's all about Florida State. When
yeah,
I like Deion Sanders from Florida State. I mean, that's about as far as my Florida State loyalty goes. But I'm strictly
uh-huh.
about the you. But go ahead, keep
The
going.
youth.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I picked football back up junior year, played 2 years of high school football once I got back stateside, and man, the rest was history. I was fortunate enough to get a scholarship. One of my top five ended up boiling down to Clemson University, University of South Carolina, UGA, Michigan State, and Florida State. Those were my five official visits. So I ended up choosing Clemson University based off conversations that I had with some of my other peers throughout the state that were highly ranked throughout the state as well as the nation. And we got together and it was like, man, let's keep the talent in the state. And the obvious choice at that particular time was Clemson University because Carolina sucked,
Mhm.
and their record was horrible. They were like 1-11, 2-10, stuff like that. It was like we're not going there. So we decided to go to Clemson
Who
University, and
was
that's
who was some of the people that you I told you my friend, one of my best friends way before you was born, Terry Smith was a top
mm-hmm.
freshman wide receiver at Clemson, played against. Deion Sanders' freshman year and had an outstanding performance. But who were some of the people that told you let's go to Clemson? I think Von Kirkland go to Clemson too?
Levon Clark went. Yep, he went
Yeah.
there. He's before my time.
Now
He's
him and
before my time.
Cherry were roommates.
Yeah, were
And-
they?
yeah, they were roommates. So who were some of the mentors that basically you talked to that said, "Hey, let's keep you in Clemson"?
Well, it wasn't the mentors, right? It was us ourselves as
Okay.
the
Okay.
recruits in the state that we got together. Like we had developed relationships. You know how I go. You might see somebody at a camp, Nike camp, or this college camp or whatnot, and even on unofficial visits, and you start to develop a relationship and what that possibly could look like, y'all all being there together as
Right.
far as helping the program be successful. So those talks we came out, we exchanged numbers and we just kept in touch, followed each other as Friday night lights on the highlights after you done played your game, seeing who did what. And so myself, Roscoe Crosby, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the name. He got drafted to play baseball out of high school, out of
Yeah.
a small town called Union County, Buffalo, South Carolina. But he was the number one receiver in the state. I was the number two receiver in the state. He was the number two receiver in the country. And like I said, he got drafted, parade All American, got drafted to play baseball by the Kansas City Royals coming out of high school, as well as continue to play football with Clemson University. Ben Hall, who was a tight end, he was like the number one, number two tight end in the country. He was another individual. We had one of our other buddies. He didn't make it with us. Tymir Zimmerman. He was the number three receiver in the state. And man, we all was like, hey man, let's keep this talent in the state. And so that's what we ended up doing. When the Clemson that year Clemson had the number 8 recruiting class in the country.
Who was your quarterback? I'm just curious.
Freshman year was Woodrow Dantzler. Woodrow Dantzler, Woody D was my quarterback my freshman year. So then after that, after Woody graduated, because that would have been his senior year, I had Willie Simmons, who's now the running backs coach at Duke, and then Charlie Whitehurst. He was my quarterback my last hoorah, my last playing days while I was at Clemson. He finished. That's who I finished out with, Charlie Whitehurst. They called him Clipboard Jesus while he was in the league.
You focused a lot on track and field. Um, did you wind up becoming a dual scholarship threat at Clemson, both track field and maybe basketball?
No, it was just football. It was just football. It was one of those things like all the schools that I finalized for my final list that came down to it, it was understood that in order for me to come to your particular college institute, I needed to be able to run track. And what that looked like is during spring, like because I know we have spring football, like I don't need to be so heavily involved with the spring workouts if I was doing track as well. Because it's not like I was just going to be running track just to be running track, working on my speed. No, I was contributing. I was
Right.
all ACC, in the 60 for all ACC and the 100 to 200. I was the East Region champion, the 100, All American 4x1. So I contributed. I went to NCAA's every year while I ran track at Clemson.
What was
Like
your event?
I wasn't just out there.
What
Say
was
that
your
again.
what was your event?
Event, I ran the 100 and 200. 100, 200, 4x1. I was a 10-2, 100-meter guy, and I ran the 220.6. 20.6 was my time in the 200. So
Uh,
I used to pick
you,
him
you
up and put him down a little bit, man.
you're just a beast then.
Yes, sir.
let's, let's
Used
go
to pick
back
him
a
up,
little
put him down
bit.
a little bit.
Let's go back a little bit. You talked about being a military brat, traveling and being blessed to go all over the world pretty much. You mentioned that when you came back, your father was there. What was how much was your father involved? Because you say your mom was a single mom, but you did mention your dad. What was your dad's role here? Because I didn't hear you say much about your father's impact on your life.
Well, my dad was just, it was one of the things like my mom traveling, her being in the military and her getting certain assignments otherwhere, that made it hard to kind of just be physically able to see my dad as often I would like to.
Hmm.
So during those years, like when I was in Germany, particularly kindergarten through second grade, seventh through ninth grade, all I could really depend on was phone calls as far as staying in touch with my father. And we kept that relationship going through phone calls during those particular times. Like, so when I was able to get back to stateside and stay with my grandmother that third grade year, it was just an opportunity for me and my dad to have more interaction physically and face to face because he stayed 10 minutes down the street from my grandmother. We always had a good relationship,
Mhm.
regardless of what him and my mother had going on. We always had a good relationship, and it was just like nothing was missed when we would get together. And it was always like that.
When you wind up picking your school, did you consult with your dad? What did your dad tell you when you got ready to go off to college?
I didn't consult with my dad. I didn't consult with my mother much as well either. It was just they understood it was like it was my decision. This is your decision. This is where you're going to be at the next 4 years of your life. So it really boils down to what you want to do. And I took that. I took all that responsibility on myself. Of course, her thing, my mother's thing was she wanted me to get my degree. She wanted me to finish college. That was her big thing.
Hmm. You wind up getting picked in the draft. So let's stick with your college performance. What do you think made you stand out that you even got uh, offered the chance to go into the draft and actually we'll talk about that in a minute. You went pretty high in the draft. But what do you think amplified that for you? Because you talk more about your track and field and your basketball
Mhm.
more so than your football. So in order to get to that level of even uh, being projected to go in the first or second round, you had to put up some pretty outstanding performances. What was your college career like?
I didn't have a bad college career at all. I mean, of course, looking back and just reflecting on, I'm the type of individual. I'm my own biggest critic. I'm not gonna pat myself on the back because I sit there and break down films. Like, you could have did this better. Regardless of how successful I might have been on that particular play, I'm always looking at what I could have improved on. But
Right.
freshman year, just to give you an example, I had the freshman record for yards per reception. I was averaging like 17.9 yards a catch as a freshman.
Wow.
I played as a true freshman. I didn't redshirt coming into Clemson. I played as a true freshman. Myself and the other individual I was talking to you about, those guys that we talked about, Roscoe Crosby and Ben Hall, we all played as true freshmen coming into the program. So
Wow.
we contributed early on. My sophomore year, unfortunately, performance wise, I didn't do as good.
Why do
I
you
don't
think
think
that
it
it
does.
was?
I think it was just more focused than anything because I had a hell of an off season, like training. I had a hell of an off season. It was looking very promising coming off that freshman year. I think it was a focus thing. Then we made a change coaching wise at that position. Coach Sweeney then came in the that spring of that year, and my focus was regained, and I kind of went to a whole nother level once he got into that room, that wide receiver room with us. And junior year, the numbers I had, I came out junior, I didn't drop a ball the whole year, practice included.
Wow.
My junior year, that's how locked in I was. I mean, how I was going, how I started the year out, I was leading the country in yards and receptions, and then I got hurt. If I wouldn't have had that injury that I had, I would have came out as a junior. Like, because I would have,
What was the injury? What was the injury?
it wasn't nothing significant, Andre. It was, I think I had a high ankle sprain that was lingering, and then I ended up slightly tearing my quad muscle Florida State game because we beat Florida State that year at home. We played them at home, and that just I kind of missed a game or so for that. But there was nothing major, but it just kind of set me down for a little bit as far as not being on track to continue that
Okay.
because those numbers, I might have missed like 3 weeks total with those injuries, those two injuries. But that junior year, I had a hell of a year, and then just senior year, I just kind of built on that. I was like, all right, now let me just show them that I can be durable and be consistent. So I made first team All ACC that senior year. I led the ACC in yards and receptions.
When did you when did you realize that the scouts were really starting to look at you? Because you coming off an injury, now you got to come back your senior year and really shine. Because this is that opportunity. So what was it like to know that you were and had the possibility to be considered a number one first rounder or second rounder in the draft?
It was just confirmation for me. Like early on as a kid, and I have children myself now, and I have an individual. My middle son is the same way mentality. Like I told you, I did the big three, and even I added track eventually. My mindset was that regardless which sport I decided I was going to wholly focus on,
Mhm.
I was going pro in. I was going pro in it. I knew I had that type of ability. Like it had been instilled in me all as I was growing up. I always, and we come from a generation where we played with older kids, so
Yeah.
it forced you to be tougher. It forced you to get it out the mud and get it how you live type deal. It forced you to compete because those individuals were going to be bigger, stronger, and faster. Fortunately for me, a lot of times I was often faster than a lot of those older kids. So they were, I was like, man, that boy is going to be something when he grow up. Like, I heard that all my life. Let me go ahead and get your autograph now because you're going to make it. And I got memory books and yearbooks where people where I've done signed and I've seen over the years in the past where they asked for autographs because they felt like I was going to make it professionally with whatever I did. And that was the mentality that I had. I had that mindset. I'm going pro regardless because I put in the work. I put in the work. I seen the blueprint. I knew what that looked like. I had my individuals that I mimicked. Baseball was Ken Griffey. Basketball was Michael Jordan. You know, saying football, it was Jerry Rice. Those were my idols when it came to sports. And so I tried to model my work ethic in my game after those individuals. And I was like, as long as I could stay consistent and be healthy, I was like, I'll make it. So once that happened,
Yeah.
me seeing that recruiting process and what that looks like at the collegiate level coming out of high school, it was the same thing from collegiate to pro. You've seen that once you start getting a little bit of buzz, people start, you start hearing that little chatter in your ear. Hey, agents start reaching out to you. At that point, it's like, hey, I got a legit shot. And it's like
Hmm.
now it's just making sure you do what you need to do.
Now, tell me what it was like during the draft and what draft class was it?
It was the 2005 draft class. I mean,
Who's in that class? Who's in that 2005
man,
class?
that was a hell of a
That was a
class.
hell of a that was
Man,
one of
that
the
was
best. Yeah.
jeez, that was a hell of a class. Cedric Benson. I'm trying to think. I'm having a brain fart now. You don't put me on the spot, but man, that was a hell of a class. Tommy Harris, Tank Johnson. Just thinking about I'm thinking about some quarterbacks, receiver wise. We had some guys that my teammate Justin Miller. The list goes on, man. It was a guy, them boys from Florida State. Florida State had a bunch of guys. It was a crazy draft class. That 2005 class. That class was it was loaded, and I knew it was going to be loaded because that was that same class that came out in 2001 from high school, and
Right.
that year they was loaded as well too, and it was the same for that draft class, man. But it definitely was a childhood dream come true. It was frustrating at the same sense too because I was fortunate enough. I got invited to the combine in Indianapolis. So I got there and realized that I had a stress fracture in my fifth metatarsal, which I
Wow.
didn't know anything about.
Really?
Because anybody that's been there and have experienced that process, you feel like you're at a meat market. You
Oh,
got
I've
all
I've
these
been to the
individuals.
combines. I watched what you guys do there, man.
Man,
I mean,
I,
it is it's
crazy.
yeah, it's boot camp for real. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're gonna be very thorough about their investment, them investing in you. So I remember as soon as I get there, I get off the plane, put my stuff in the room, and I'm straight to the hospital. They want to do
What?
MRI on this foot, yeah, MRI on this foot, MRI on this knee, MRI on that knee. And I know I was at the hospital about 6 hours before I hadn't even ate anything. So while I was there, I'm going somewhere. I had an opportunity to meet formally. I had formal meetings because you have informal and formal meetings where you meet with organizations. Like my
Mm.
formal meetings were with the Kansas City Chiefs, the Chicago Bears, and the Atlanta Falcons. So those were the three organizations that I knew that were genuinely interested in drafting me based off the
Right.
conversation. You know, in those rooms, they bring up all kinds of stuff. They ask you about event situations you might have been in, college, high school. Like, damn, we're gonna talk about this right now. Like, let's talk about football. But yeah, so at that point, I knew I was projected to go anywhere from the second to the fifth round based off them discovering that I had that injury. Kansas City advised me while I was at the combine to go ahead and have the surgery once I got back home from the combine.
Right.
Other ones they kind of downplayed a little bit more, but I think that caused me to trying to drop to that fifth round. Chicago was able to get me on the steal because if it wasn't for that stress fracture in my foot, I honestly believe I would have went higher than what I went because I'm sitting there watching the draft and I'm seeing guys get drafted. I'm like, damn man, I used to cook him. It's like he's getting drafted. That's a thought process. He's like, damn, he
Yeah.
gonna go higher than me. So that
But what
first they
was
go, that
what was your mental state knowing that you come to Indianapolis, the greatest city on the face of the earth, I might say, but you come to Indianapolis, you go straight into, I don't know what hospital they probably took you to. They probably took you to either Methodist, Wishart, or St. Vincent's. But
Yeah,
that had
I
to
feel
be
like it was St. Vincent, right?
St. Vincent's. Yeah. So it's kind of like you go there, but you came
Mhm.
here to go to the combines. Like what the hell went through your mind? I mean, I don't even I know you got to say, damn, my draft stock just dropped because now you can't perform
Yeah,
in front of the dudes that you were smoking before.
it I didn't let it alter my mindset or at all. I just always been an overcomer in that regards injury. Just to rewind back a little bit, like that same foot that I fractured, I fractured in high school, just running. I just fractured it running, but I won. I remember the particular meet that I fractured. It was at a region track meet down in Sumter, South Carolina. I fractured it running 100 meters, and I won the race. I still won the race. Won it. Ran a 10.8. Won the race. I felt it when it popped. I just kind of just kept running through the finish line and went and found the fence and just hugged the fence because the pain at that point, the
Yeah.
adrenaline was done rushing. I was like, damn, this is excruciating. Same thing happened. That would have been my junior year. Same thing happened to the same foot my senior year. I was running in reverse, scored a touchdown in it, broke a couple tackles leading into the scoring that touchdown. But in that process, I refractured my foot. I felt it when it happened because I remember walking off the sideline after I scored, handing the ball back to the referee, and I just remember looking into the stands of my mom, and she had that look, and I had this look on my face. Like she could tell. She was like, "What's wrong?" Like she mounted me, like, "What's wrong?" And I'm like pointing at my foot, like I refractured my foot. So
Gee.
at that particular mind, knowing that and discovering that was what happened or what was the result of my foot while I was at the combine, it didn't bother me. It was just like, hey, I'm gonna come back faster, stronger, quicker, and that's what I did. Hell, I still performed while I was there. I ran a 4.49 on a fractured foot, 4.49, 38.5 inch vertical. It did good in the three cone, the 5.10.5 three cone. I caught every ball. I didn't drop a ball. Ran good routes. I still performed with that fractured foot. It was just one of those things. It was like, we still gonna get you at a discount though, and that's what it was. So
So
hey,
when so when
Chicago's.
the, so when they call your name in the
Uh-huh.
second round, right? The second round,
It was the fifth. I got called in the fifth, Dre.
in the fifth round, and
Yeah, I got called in the fifth.
what number in the fifth round?
140th overall.
140th, and you get picked by
So
the Chicago.
right at the very beginning. Yep, Chicago Bears, right at the very beginning.
Well, that's a guaranteed contract.
Yeah, that's guaranteed contract.
Yeah, when
Yep.
you get drafted, that's guaranteed. So now you go
Yes,
to
sir.
Chicago. They why do you think Atlanta and the other team opt out?
I don't know. That's a good question. I never thought more so about that. It might have been that they didn't want to deal with the possibility of it. You know how it goes. You
Yeah.
go and buy old schools. Like, hey, you got this rust, got some rust. Well, do I want to deal with putting the money into it to get the rust out of it and make sure that rust doesn't reappear type deal. So maybe it was one of those situations. Maybe they didn't feel like I was going to be durable. So Chicago rolled the dice on me, and I was thankful that they were gave me an opportunity to be able to play football at the highest level. So once I got that call from them, I was excited.
So you go to Chicago, first day in Soldier Field.
Oh man,
I've been to Soldier Field. My first football experience on the NFL level was at Soldier Field behind the football players, and I remember it was cold as hell.
yes sir,
And I was
it's
like,
different.
yeah, I'm like, wow. I remember you couldn't give me enough hot chocolate. I was a kid, you know, really didn't even know football. I'm sitting here going, what's going on? This was when they had Walter Payton was playing then because I was a kid. Walter Payton or whoever it
Okay,
was at that time. But I remember it was cold. What was that like when you walked into that legendary field?
man, it was unbelievable. I ain't gonna lie to you, it was unbelievable. And I just think about the very first day of practice, like after rookie mini camp was over with, and just coming from the South and playing your football career your entire life in the South. And just like how it looks outside behind me, it was bright and sunny. And I remember putting on my track pants and putting on my football jersey with no sleeves up on it. It's we talking middle of May now. I just left. I just left 80, high 80, 90-degree weather. I remember one of my partners, Justin Gage, good guy, good fella. He's like, hey, Rook, you might want to put some more sleeves on. I said, man, I don't need no sleeves. Why I get out there on that field? That hawk was out. We talking, it was like low 50s, high 40s in
Yeah.
May. I said, oh man, this is different. This is different. So, but just to be in Soldier Field, just that environment is very electrifying, man. And just the whole setup is real dope. Right there off of the lake. I mean, you ain't built for that, man. You see it. You see it from individuals as soon as they set foot in that field, especially at certain points in the year. Like it's late in the year, December, January, you got to come in there and play that. You from down south? Because my rookie year, Atlanta came in there and we beat Atlanta in the first round of playoffs. And they ain't want no parts of it, bro. You can see it all on their face on that sideline. They wanted no parts of that
How
cold
did
and that crowd. We was on the by.
how did your game in preparation change? Because you hear that from a lot of players. You know, they go, I don't ever want to go to Green Bay. I don't want to go to
Mhm.
Chicago, you know, because that has to be a complete mind adjustment. Like, how did your whole game change now? Because it'd been different had you got drafted in Atlanta and went and played an indoor stadium. Now you
Right.
have to prepare and everything outdoor. Is it a better do guys who play in the colder climates do they play better than the ones that play indoors or the one that play like in Miami where the season is different? What's your take on that?
I think it's all based off the individual, like in the preparation and what your body is used to. Like for me, I think my body had to make that adjustment. I think that's why I kept having like these soft tissue muscle injuries while I was there. It was my body just getting used to playing in that climate for that particular time and being a fast guy and have to my fast twitch muscles like, hey, what are we doing right now? Like we need to warm up more. Like
Right.
you were not warned to be opening up like that. So I think you get used to it over time. Like if you're not used to it, because going into my third year, I had got used to it. I had got used to it. Like my skin seemed like it was thicker. Just I was able to deal with the cold a lot better. Like those, unlike those first 2 years. Although you're gonna make it do what it do. You play football. You play football long enough, you're gonna play in different states and stuff like that. So we would play Maryland and we get cold there, of course, VA and we get cold, but that Chicago cold was a different type of cold. And just like you talk about in Green Bay, it's a different type of cold, man. It was like, man, what are we trying to prove, man? Why don't y'all dome this thing in? Minnesota and Detroit, the only one that got sense in that division, man. Everybody else, Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Chicago, Green Bay, them boys, they crazy.
What was
Because that's a different type of cold.
what was it like for you when you played that first game though? Like what was that like for you? Now you know your dream has just come true. You know, you went from overseas balling, college balling, you're running on messed up feet and go to the NFL and I mean like now you got to perform that first show. That first game, what was that like for you?
For me, it wasn't. It was like a bittersweet thing because for my first actual game, like we talked about earlier, I was injured my 2 years with Chicago. So my actual first true game would have been Green Bay, at Green Bay, and I was playing special teams, and I was just coming back from battling some injuries that I had dealt with from training camp. I slightly tore my lateral meniscus in my left knee, so I went from basically, being a solid 53-man roster guy to being on the bubble. So I kind of fought back, and Levy, I've been letting him know, he's like, hey, big guy, he's like, you're gonna have to get it together. And I was like, hey, I remember running into him like going into the cafeteria before we had practice. Like, hey, we're gonna give you a shot. You got to give it together. So I was able to kind of keep it together and stay healthy and come back from that slight tear in my lateral meniscus and make that 53-man roster. Only, but my other parts of my body, like my hamstrings, I think were affected by that. Like I couldn't open up like I wanted to. I don't know if it was because of a compensation thing or what, but I felt like I had developed knots in my hamstrings like the size of golf balls. I'm talking about both my hamstrings. and I was going to get treatment and stuff like that. Just hindsight being 2020, I should have been getting more massages as well too, but it just seemed like nothing was working. And me being speed being a huge aspect of my game and just an explosive player in and out my break, not to be able to do that, that took away from my game significantly. So I was able to compete, but I wasn't able to compete like I wanted to, if that makes sense. So
Yeah, yeah.
uh, I had fun running down on special teams. I didn't play the receiver position like what I wanted to because of that, because I had fell back down on the depth chart.
What do you?
And then after that, I re-injured my foot again. So then I was on IR. That would have been my second season. So we're talking about my second season, because my first year I got injured when they decided they want to get me ready, move me up off a pup, physically unable to perform because we had a couple other receivers that go down. First week of practice, I'm killing it. I remember I ran a slant and caught the ball, went to plant and get upfield. I slipped and strained my hamstring. Came back 2 weeks from that. We was inside practicing in the bubble. I remember Kyle threw me a deep fade, and I went to go pull it in with one hand. As soon as I went to pull it in with one hand, made the grab, slightly tore my right hamstring. IR for the year. That was my rookie year. Come back, saying all off season. I stayed up there all off season, bust my ass, got stronger, got faster, worked on my flexibility, improved my flexibility, came into it, man, basically starting in the slot. When Moose wasn't there, like at the flanker position, at the Z position, heck, I was the next man up. My partner that was right behind me at the time, Rasheed Davis, it was either one. It was my job to lose, technically, what it was, because he was right there on me. I remember OTAs. I was running a dig route. Came out the dig route, slightly pulled my quad muscle. This is right before we going home. That month you go home to, like, the month of July, where you kind of got them 3 weeks right before you leading up to training camp.
Yeah.
That's when that time period was. So now mentally, I'm like, damn, I got to get my job back. I was like, that's all I'm thinking about them 3 weeks while I was home. I was like, I need to get my job back. So I go into camp with that on my mind, with that thinking about that. I was like, man, I got to get it back. And hell, man, first week of camp, I slightly tore my lateral meniscus. Slightly tore
Yeah.
my lateral meniscus. So it was just an uphill battle. Like I said, it was all soft tissue muscle injuries, with the exception of that fracture to my foot that I sustained going into right after we had finished playing Minnesota, like early on. I think that was either late September or early October. Then I was IR'd again for the year. So that was my run.
Do how involved was the staff, the strength trainers, the conditioning coaches, the overall staff? They 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 drafted you, and these are things that are unforeseen. How did they?
Mm-hmm.
What was did they rally around you? What was their contributing factors to helping you get better outside of saying, "Well, we giving you resources"? Was there compassion for what you was going through, or it was more like, "Okay, next man up"?
Oh yeah, you already know how that go. At that level, man, the NFL is cutthroat. Ain't no compassion. You got you a number, you a body. You know what I mean? Just like I tell, and that's the mindset that I bring to coaching now in training, that I coach and train. But being an athlete, I was like, you got to understand that this is a business. So
Right.
I had already been prepared. I had already been prepared for that. I was fortunate enough. My high school coach, he was fortunate enough to play in the NFL, so he already gave me the game. Hey, make sure you know your shit. Don't depend on nobody to help you with your playbook and know your plays. So I had that mentality instilled in me early on coming out of high school. So the approach I had was a business mindset in regards to the game at that particular, especially at that level.
Right.
As much as it was jacked up psychologically, because just to see that, it was like, man, you develop these relationships with these individuals, but the moment you can't do anything
It's a different
sports
ball game.
wise for them, it's just like, yeah, it's like, to hell with you. Like, we'll put you on the back burner. Either you're gonna get healthy, and that'll be great. If you don't get healthy, we're gonna get somebody else in here for you.
When did you realize that reward versus risk? When does that take priority? You keep getting injured. Um, you have to sit back and do a self evaluation of yourself and say, I might have to hang this up. And then when that did enter your mind, what was your next option?
For me, that probably didn't come until years after I left Chicago, because thankfully I didn't have one of those injuries that was season injury, a season injury, ending type injury, or life threatening or detrimental to my health. Like I said, they were all soft muscle tissue injuries and fractures that I've sustained before in my life. Nothing that hindered me from doing stuff that I do now. Yeah, it's my knee a little clicky at times doing squats and stuff. Yeah, it is, but I understand knowing my body. It was like, hey, you just got to make sure you're doing them leg extensions often to make sure you're doing your stretches because I'm not going to get my knee scoped again for what? I ain't trying to play no ball. I'm not about to have you cut on me. So for me, that would have came in like 2010, like August of 2010, when I finally hung it up and decided to retire. And that was more so because this isn't putting food on the table or this isn't paying the bills. On to the next endeavor in life for me. And I, as a man, I could move on and genuinely say that I gave it my all to trying to get back to that level, if that
Mhm.
makes sense. Because I was working out twice a day. You know, we was running in the morning, we was lifting right after we finished running. I did that 6 days a week. Did that 6 days a week from the very time that I had got released by Chicago. I was fortunate enough to go up to Canada in 2009 and play a season up there, but that was more so to show the teams back in the league in the NFL that I was durable and that I could be healthy. That's what that was all about. Hindsight being 2020, I should have went up there sooner because I set out, I missed a whole season only to go back up there anyway the following year.
Yeah. Now you wind up doing something extraordinary since you retired. And let's talk a little bit about Catch This Sports and the need for this organization that you created. Tell the viewers a little bit about this.
Catch this sports was something that came about when I was training with my mentor who I was training with while I was still trying to pursue the league. It was one thing that I grew to love and develop some passion about, like him training me because he has a PhD basically in exercise science, biomechanics, and kinesiology, and just I picked his brain and just the stuff that he was showing me and telling me I was like, damn, they wasn't telling me this in the league. I was like, y'all getting paying all this, y'all getting paid all this damn money. You know what I mean? Y'all just want to label me as injury prone as opposed
Right.
to seeing the issue and correcting the issue. Like I remember particularly I had a workout with the New York Dragons. I don't know if you remember New York Dragons. This is when Arena
Mhm.
One was still popping, like Cass was making six figures Arena One ball
Right.
before that league had folded. And I had a workout with them here in Columbia at a particular indoor facility, and they were going to sign me. Like before that league, that following month, the league folded. They offered me. I had the contract at the house and everything. But I say all that to say, he saw me at that workout and he saw me running. He was like, "Man, you generate a lot of force in your lower extremity while you're running." I was
Right.
like, he was like, "You're a deceptive." He was like, "You're a deceptive runner. It don't look like you're running." He was like, "But you are generating a lot of force." And I remember us sitting down having lunch talking about it. And he was like, "You don't understand what I'm saying?" I was like, "No, break it down to me." He was like, "When you're generating that type of force," he said, "something has to take on that force." And he said, "Unfortunately for you, it's your lower leg that's taking on that force." He
I
said,
was
"And
getting
that's
ready to
why you
say
keep
that.
fracturing."
Yeah.
Yeah, he said that's why you keep fracturing your foot over and over in the same place. He's like, so I want to get with you and help you generate that force coming more from your hips. And man, Dre, once we figured that out, man, I've had no more issues since.
You know that's what I
No,
do for a living, right?
yeah, I
Human
know. I remember
performance.
him
Yeah.
here. Yeah. So that's man,
Yeah.
that struck a fire in me to just be able to instill that and pass that along to athletes now. And that was always been my passion as far as helping them understand their body. I'm like, we know our bodies better than anybody else. But
Right.
if I being there and having that experience, going through it myself, can see that with my naked eye and like, hey man, your movement is horrible. And if you keep moving like that, 9 times out of 10, this is probably what's gonna happen. And
Hmm.
so that's I think was the difference in the motivation for me starting Catch This Sports. That was my passion and to be able, one, it allowed me to be able to stay connected to sports. And two, it was an opportunity to be able to just mentor individuals and just speak into their life. And three, it was an opportunity for me to be able to just get my hands on them directly, how I went to and express to them and talk to them about life after sports while we're training and stuff like that. Because
Right.
that was one thing that I darn didn't think about while I was playing. Because you couldn't have paid me to think or know that I would be done playing football, NFL football in 2 years. You couldn't have paid me $1 million. Like, hey, you're gonna be over and done with it in 2 years. So I knew I always had this entrepreneur mindset because I graduated Clemson with a marketing degree with an emphasis in sports. I just didn't know exactly what that looked like during my playing time. And
Wow.
so I tell them to go ahead and start thinking about that stuff right now. I was like, because you can't do this shit forever. It's
Yeah.
gonna come a time of day, whether that's due to injury or whether due to a don't nobody else want you. So you can't go on to that next level. You know what I mean? Don't nobody else want you no more. So hey,
What is
time
the
to move
age?
on.
What is the age brackets that individuals can come and be a part of this? And is it both male and female?
It is male and female. The only reason it's male and female, and I've trained individuals as young as 6 years old. One of my parents years ago, when I first started this thing, because he was like, "You're putting yourself in a box." My thing was, I was being very specific and focusing on wide receiver training and speed training, since that's what I was known for. I excelled in those two areas, so I was like, "I'm just gonna focus on those two." And he was like, "Nah," he said, "I don't think you should put yourself in a box like that."
Yeah.
And so that's when I opened it up, and I was like, "No, I train all athletes," because I get parents that come to me all the time wanting me to help get their kids stronger, faster, and quicker, as far as whether that be working on their agility, their change of direction, their footwork, or just their straight line speed. And as well, now more even like they want to work on release stuff like hand work, different stuff. Because I practice martial arts, so I show them different stuff as far as about how to incorporate that into their game that can be beneficial to them getting off the line of scrimmage, whether you play offensive line, defensive lineman, or the wide receiver position. Just understanding the hand combat and how you can use that to be beneficial to you getting open, or you getting to that quarterback or whatnot. So
What
yeah,
about
I
their
train all that.
what about their nutritional, the nutrition sound?
I'm not huge on that, but I understand what needs to be put in there to your body. You're not gonna put 87 in no Ferrari. You're not gonna put 87 in your motorcycle. If you
Yeah.
want it to perform like it needs to perform, you can. You can. It's gonna run like shit. You know what I mean? You can. But so I keep it very simple and generic with it. I'm like lean meats, fruits, and vegetables.
Okay.
Lean meats, fruits, and vegetables, and darn plenty of water. Plenty
What
of water.
what did such a beautiful journey. You're 42 years old. You have children of your own. What's the if you had to go back and look in the mirror at yourself, what would you tell yourself? Like say 10 years back, 15 years back, looking in the mirror, what would you tell yourself?
I would tell myself to darn just because, excuse me, we come from that generation as well too, as far as about be humble. You know what I mean? This and there's nothing wrong with that. But I've grown to realize and learn over the years that you can be humble all you want to, but being too humble does not get you fed. Being too humble does not get you through doors that you feel like you should be in, and in rooms that you feel like you should be in, company you feel like you should be a part of.
Mhm.
That ain't gonna get you, you know what I'm saying, the fruits of your labor. You enjoying life like you want to enjoy life and desire to enjoy life. No, you got to be a lion and be ferocious and go out here and take it and get it, because ain't nobody gonna give you a damn thing, you know. So that's where I'm at with that.
How can the viewers reach out to you and know more about the programs that you are now offering individuals?
They can reach out to me. They can go to my website, www.catchthissports.com. You have all the literature on that website, as well as social media platforms. I got my name up there where there's no confusion. Airese_Currie on IG, Airese Currie on Facebook, Airese Currie on TikTok as well too. So any one of those platforms, AireseCurrie@gmail.com. No spacing or period as far as email directly. I also have a fundraiser that I'm doing for a facility that I plan to create and open up my own personal training facility for athletes, where that's talked about on my website. I'm doing a fundraiser through cheddarup.com. So currently at about $1,790 donated to date so far. So I'm excited about that, and just people are pouring into that and they're interested in that. And the idea of that is to help combat depression and diabetes, because my wife is a family nurse practitioner, so we have our own private medical clinic. So we
Wow.
do that as well. I'm by day I'm the office manager doing that. Then I leave there and I go train athletes. So I'm doing that throughout the day. Then I leave there and
And
go train.
You definitely got that beast mindset. You all over the place.
All over the place, man. All over the place. Just finished up coaching high school football. We got our heads smacked this past Friday by a team in the low country. So I'm done with coaching high school football for the year. But now off-season training picks up for those individuals that are interested in off-season training and looking to enhance their performance levels this off-season if they're not going into another sport that they play. So even if you are, you still have a little bit of time where you can, benefit from that training.
Aries, thank you so much for taking time out to come and share such a extraordinary story about dreams fulfilled, that beast mindset. I encourage the viewers to reach out if they have children that need that extra enhancement. And the good part about the camps and the opportunities that you're creating, you never know uh, when an injury can derail you. And it's
Right.
always with so much technology that we have, which is really funny because you would think at that time the NFL would have brought in human performance biomechanical engineers to understand that sometimes all it takes is a shift of a body part to change the trajectory of an injury. But with that said, I wish you the best. If we can do anything here with the iambeast network or coming back on the show to tell us more about things that you're doing or that you're doing for the community, hey, our doors is always open. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, this has been an exciting episode of the Andre the Beast Crayton show.